Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight on Our News Weekend. Under investigation, the country's murder count climbs overnight after a man is gunned down outside his Cowpen Road home. Find out what police are saying about this latest slaying. Plus, Saved by the Bell, public schools are just a week away from welcoming back thousands of students. But are campuses ready? And later, dive in. The final day of competition at the 2023 Goodwill Games is wrapping up in Jamaica. But how did day 2 of competition go? Our Sasha Lightborn brings us the highlights. We've got these stories and more as Our News Weekend starts now. This is Our News Weekend. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Marlena Leonard. The murder count climbed last night after a 34-year-old man was gunned down. Police say the shooting happened 8:30 p.m. on Cowpen Road as the victim was sitting in his white Mitsubishi vehicle outside his home. That's when a man pulled up in a Japanese vehicle, jumped out, and opened fire, hitting the victim in the upper body. Officer in charge of the Criminal Investigation Department, Chief Superintendent Michael Johnson, did not say whether or not the victim is known to police, but he was asked if the victim was targeted before. Here was his response.
That is an inquiry that we would have to look into. It's early in the investigation, and I would not speculate until we speak to some other persons and progress in this investigation. Now officers are on the ground. We're speaking to persons in this area. We're doing it covertly. As you're aware that persons don't really want to be seen like that speaking with the officers, so we're speaking to them. And we're looking for, like you said, cameras and any other thing that could assist to advance this investigation.
Member of Parliament for Golden Isles, Vaughn Miller, also on the scene, giving his condolences to the victim's family. Miller says he is saddened by the situation. As for what needs to be done to address the issue of crime in the country,
I wish I knew the answer to that question. I know persons are fed up. Too many persons are living in fear. Too many persons do not feel safe. And it happens over and over. I know the police. I just spoke to a number of the senior police officers. They're doing their best. And I'm sure they need help from all sectors. You need help from communities, persons in the community, persons who may know, persons who may have an idea.
A joint search and rescue effort has been mounted by the U.S. Coast Guard and Royal Bahamas Defense Force after a flight did not land as expected in Eleuthera on Saturday evening. The Coast Guard tweeted that the aircraft with one person on board ditched between Nassau and Spanish Wells and requested that boaters and pilots in the vicinity keep a sharp lookout for any sign of the missing aircraft and pilot. The Bahamas Aircraft Accident Investigation Authority said they received notification on Saturday of an overdue Cessna with Bahamas registration that was en route to North Eleuthera. The aircraft lost contact with air traffic control in Miami during the flight. A delegation of government and education officials touring several schools under renovation. It comes a week before the official opening of public schools. Prime Minister Davis led the tour of several New Providence schools today where contractors are still hard at work. He was joined by Education Minister Glenys Hannah Martin and State Minister of Education Zane Lightborn. Among the schools visited were Government High School, T.A. Thompson Junior High, Woodcock Primary, and Uriah McPhee Primary.
The challenge most of the contractors were having is sourcing goods, getting long lead items because of the supply chain issue. So what did that mean? What happened? The local vendors have benefited. Most of the products you're seeing they're buying it from local vendors.
We expect that all of our schools will open for the students on the 28th. There are some campuses where the work will continue while teachers, in one or two schools, teachers will go to a plan B before coming onto the campus. But it is our anticipation that on the 28th, the young people of this nation, in their uniforms, will enter schools nationwide.
As schools across the country gear up to reopen, many parents are out and about preparing for their children to return to the classrooms. And to assist with this, the government has once again implemented a VAT holiday on school supplies. That started yesterday. But even with these provisions in place, school preparations can still be a challenge. Bahamas Union of Teachers President Belinda Wilson has this advice for parents.
This year, really, I'm a bit disappointed that the VAT Holiday came so late. I'm also disappointed that school is going to open prior to payday. So I know that there are a number of parents who are going to have a challenge getting their children ready for school. So I'll say to them, just do the best that you can do. Try your best to get your children into school.
Wilson also had this to say.
And what I think they should really commit to do this year is to stay in close contact with their child's teacher. And definitely, as I say all the time, monitor your children and know who their friends are, because there are so many things that are going on in the community in a negative way that's impacting our children.
Maintenance will help Bahamas Power and Light meet the increased power demand. That's according to a top BPL official. BPL took over management of 7 Wärtsilä engines at the end of 2022. They claim they found major defects with the units as well as delayed engine maintenance. This past week, the power giant announced a load-shedding exercise after one of its primary units was shut off for emergency repairs, resulting in a generation shortfall. The unit was eventually brought back online. Director of Energy and Supply, Anthony Christie.
Maintenance is always ongoing. We have monthly routines that we have to conduct, so we'd have to basically take off units, put on units, etc. Most of the time, we try to plan maintenance during off-peak hours that doesn't impact customers. So for instance, 2-3 a.m. in the morning when I'm asleep, the demand drops significantly because I'm not running everything. A lot of businesses, etc., are closed. We have more flexibility to do maintenance during that time. And then as soon as 8 o'clock arrives, we have units available. So I'm pretty confident for the rest of the summer, we do have enough generation to meet the demands.
While BPL works out power issues, law enforcement is looking at ways to combat cyber attacks. The country's brightest minds came together this week to discuss ways to beef up cybersecurity amid what the National Security Minister says is an increase in tech crimes. Berthany McDermott reports.
National Security Minister Wayne Munro revealing there has been an increase in cyber attacks and data breaches in the Bahamas' public infrastructure. His comments came at the 2nd Annual National Computer Incident Response Team Stakeholders Engagement Conference.
Simultaneously, as the cyber landscape becomes more accessible, it is also becoming bigger necessarily, increasingly connected, and increasingly more complex. Hence, the number of cyber threats and attack on both personal and commercial levels are on the increase.
Munro also says that more Bahamians are online with low levels of digital awareness, including businesses whose employees work from home with less secure networks. But what's worse is the admission from the National Security Minister that Bahamians are more susceptible to global threat actors.
Regardless of the government entity, data needs to be protected at every stage of its life form. And that is from its collection to when it is transmitted, to where it is stored, until it is deemed necessary to delete it. Hence, building cyber resilience and maturity are fundamental to the Bahamas' economic and national security interests. This means having cross-sectorial, strong cyber defenses with the capacity to be constantly vigilant to disrupt malicious cyber activity.
The government in its national cyber strategy outlines a 5-pronged approach to improving the country's cybersecurity posture. Munro says building cybersecurity requires an investment in people.
Training sessions and information sharing nationally, regionally, and internationally are all important as they serve to better position the Bahamas to address increasingly sophisticated cyber threats.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Berthany McDermott.
Still to come on Our News, a top Nassau Airport Development Company executive talks flight delays at the Lynden Pindling International Airport. Plus, find out why the city of Freeport was one of 24 cities selected to participate in the United States Cities Forward program. Stay tuned for the details.
If new, Heineken Silver was a riveting Viking saga.
Last that's well. hostile family tortured my first wife and stole my second favorite goat. Now you want to marry my daughter. Okay.
All the taste, no bitter endings. Smooth, fresh, silver.
Doctors Hospital is reimagined primary care. We have invested to improve our health system, ensuring that accessible, affordable, world-class clinical care is closer to you. Your relationship with a primary care provider shapes the foundation of your overall health. Our new, modern primary care facilities are where critical diagnosis and true personalized treatment begin. With locations across New Providence, Grand Bahama, and Exuma, we invite you to experience the Doctors Hospital difference. Book your next appointment at clinics.doctorshos.com.
It's a busy time for the Lynden Pindling International Airport. Thousands of passengers have been traveling through the terminals each day, sometimes causing crowding at gates. That then leads to delays. Vice President of Operations at the Nassau Development Company, Jonathan Hanna, says it's a worldwide industry issue.
It's a good problem to have. I mean, if you go back a couple of years, but during COVID, the issue was the airports were empty and there was no one traveling. Now it's the opposite. We have a lot of persons traveling, but what we've been doing is being more proactive in our communication to the passengers, advising persons to get to the airport earlier, providing tips in terms of what to pack during security to help you try to get through each process as efficiently as possible, working with our airport partners to staff up to make sure that lines continue to move.
And he says they're working with the Ministry of Tourism.
They've provided some additional persons to roam the lines, remind persons what to take off as they go through security, what they need before they go into U.S. Customs, and we found that that's been very helpful in terms of, getting persons through as efficiently as possible. It's a team effort, and the team has been doing a great job.
The city of Freeport among 24 cities participating in the Cities Forward program in partnership with the city of Coral Springs. The U.S.-based program launched in April 2023 at the City Summit of the Americas in Denver, Colorado. It's dedicated to assisting Latin America, Caribbean, and U.S. cities in creating sustainable, inclusive, and resilient futures. The Ministry for Grand Bahama has identified the revitalization of communities, repurposing of dilapidated buildings, as well as tackling water, electricity, and sewer challenges throughout communities as areas they'd like to partner on. The Commercial Enterprises Act was introduced by the Minnis administration back in 2017. The current act seeks to liberalize the granting of work permits to an enterprise that wishes to establish itself in the Bahamas and requires work permits for its management team and key personnel. Attorney General Ryan Pinder says the bill will be replaced and repealed with a bill that focuses exclusively on economic development and empowerment zones.
It provides for commercial enterprise zones, which would be given some commercial preference in different types of industries. We see that happening in Dubai and Cayman Islands and in other countries. And so we thought that was a valued piece of the legislation that really needed to be expanded upon and reformed. So what we're looking to do is do a repeal and replace of that piece of legislation in the new legislative agenda that would bolster the economic development zones component of that bill or that act, but then get rid of the automatic granting of work permits and the employment aspects of it that are objectionable to us.
Women should have the same equal pay as their male counterparts. That's according to Social Services Minister Obi Wilchcombe, who says that topic and much more will be discussed at the 13th Commonwealth Women's Affairs Ministers meeting that will be held right here in the Bahamas this week. Wilchcombe says the government is working to bring about balance.
We've been working on the development of a strategic plan to ensure that we know the stage of this event is but a step. The legislation we're seeking to pass is but a step, all intended to ensure that we can move the country forward to creating this whole question of equality, not just in words, but in action, and to ensure that people are able to see that there is, we do have in the Bahamas balance.
When our news comes back from the break, we have a recap of Day 2 of competition at the Goodwill Games. Our Sasha Lightbourne speaks to winners and parents. Plus, the Bahamas national basketball team heads into the FIBA pre-Olympic qualifier, and it's being called the biggest basketball game in Bahamian history. We have the details when Our News Weekend returns. Bahamas national basketball team heads into the FIBA pre-Olympic qualifier as the favorite to win the tournament and boasting 3 NBA players. Tonight, they'll get their chance in what will be the biggest basketball game in Bahamian history. Tage Adderley has more.
Team Bahamas beat Uruguay last night 78-62 to advance to the championship game of the FIBA pre-Olympic qualifier. Buddy Hield led the way for Team 242 with 17 points. Eric Gordon had 13 and DeAndre Ayton had 9 and 9 in the face of waves of double and triple teams from the Uruguay defense. Franco Miller came off the bench with 13 points, and longtime stalwart Keno Burrows had 9 points off the bench as well. Floor General Lural's Tum Tum Nairn went down 3 minutes into the game with a stinger in his shoulder, leaving the offense somewhat stagnated. Despite this, they had more than enough firepower to take out the overmatched Uruguay squad. Nairn is fully expected to be back for tonight's game. The Bahamas will play Argentina, the team they defeated on Wednesday night to win their pool for the championship. If they can pull this off, they'll be on to the FIBA Olympic qualifiers where they can play to go to the Olympics. This game starts tonight at 8 p.m. Bahamas time. Be sure to check in with our social media for highlights and results.
From the basketball court to the swimming pool, the final day of competition at the 2023 Goodwill Games should be wrapping up in Jamaica. Our Sasha Lightbourne will bring us the overall standings in a later report. She spoke to some of the winners as well as parents on day 2. Here's that story.
Team Bahamas continues to hold on to a considerable lead heading into the final day of competition. A few of the races on day 2 included the 200 IM, 50-meter fly, and several relays. Here are some of the winners.
I was just trying to pace myself. Since breast is my best stroke, I sort of saved a good amount of my energy for the breast, and since back is one of my weakest strokes, I tried to push a little harder on the back.
I think the race was pretty good. I was hoping to go best time, so that was a real push for me.
I felt good. Which stroke do you think was your best and your fastest?
I just wanted to get a gold and get as many points as I can for my team. It was okay. Touched the wall, it was really close, but overall I think it was really good.
And the winning didn't stop there.
For me, it was working on a breakout, making sure those underwaters was there, making sure I head down, try to take as least amount of breaths as possible, and making sure I finished into that wall strong.
I was dying a little bit, but I tried to keep my stroke steady, and yeah, just gotta give thanks to God for that, because I was praying while I was swimming.
I'm happy to get the gold, meet record, but I feel like I got to prove on my time, so I'll work on that in the off season.
It took a lot of effort, definitely months of training, staying disciplined, eating healthy, and just fighting through the pain.
50 fly has been my best race for the past couple of years. I just wanted to keep my technique all out, and I did what I need to do.
Here's what assistant coach Dwayne Davis Jr. told us at the conclusion of day 2.
They're performing. We smashed a lot of records today. We got a lot of gold medals today. So I'm really, our coaching staff are really impressed. Now they're so big.
Now a lot of parents flew over with the team to support them. We spoke to a few of them about being at the meet in person.
It was important for me to come here to not only watch history happen, but definitely to support my baby.
The kids have been doing well in terms of their execution and practices. You know, it's really to get that good parental support.
It's quite important to support them and the entire team.
I really wanted to support my son. I know this is probably going to be his last time on Goodwill, but I just know that the Bahamas always does well at Goodwill, and so I want to be a part of that energy.
At the end of day 2, the Bahamas racked up 993.5 points, more than 200 points over second place, held by Jamaica. Trinidad and Tobago are still holding on to third. Reporting from Kingston, Jamaica, for Our News, I'm Sasha Lightbourne.
When Our News Weekend returns, 25 Atlantis employees graduate from a very special program. Our Jamila Missick speaks with graduates about their experience. Don't go anywhere. Our News Weekend returns soon. Welcome back to Our News Weekend. We had some wet weather barging on us, but how will the rest of the week shape up? Here's a look at your extended weather forecast. 25 Atlantis employees are now equipped with new skills as they graduated this week with certifications from the Atlantis Technical Institute. Our Jamila Missick spoke to trainers and graduates about the experience.
You're looking at the newest cohort of graduates from the Atlantis Technical Institute. The 25 employees who work in various areas within the engineering department were exposed to a comprehensive training curriculum, allowing them to strengthen their skills by earning certifications while on the job. Atlantis Vice President of Learning and Organizational Development, Dr. Lawrence Taylor.
The program is through our Atlantis University partnership with our Atlantis Technical Institute, and we're really focusing on upskilling our team members, bringing them the knowledge that they need so that they can grow their careers and develop. Taking a person who only knows HVAC and teaching them painting as well as landscaping as well as electrical and plumbing. So we really want to make sure that we are reinvesting in our team members as well as our Bahamian community.
And he says the program is a mutual partnership with the Bahamas Technical and Vocational Institute.
So that we could get our team members to learn some of the knowledge from their instructors, and we could also help their students when they're looking for internships and positions so that we can employ them as well.
Now, while this was just an introduction to the many courses offered at BTVI, the graduates were encouraged to take it a step further. Since joining the team only 3 months ago, Ricardo Sawyer says he's learned a lot to advance his skill set.
So as long as I've known myself, and as long as everyone has known me, I've always wanted to be an engineer. I'm an innovative thinker, and that's the way I want to pursue life. Moving forward, this gives me more of a hands-on approach to engineering because I'm a book nerd, I'll say it. I'm a big fan of theory, so this really helps me more with the hands-on parts of engineering.
And here's what graduate Maxwell Williams says this means for him.
Opportunities, that give us, for me personally, it has made me proud. Why I say made me proud? Because I go home to my 3 sons right now, and I'm going to say, hey, Daddy got the certificate. So my oldest son did say he wants to see it, and he told me, because I'm always on him for education, because I feel like for men, we must have some type of knowledge. You know what I mean? We got to get it together. So, and I wanted to bring them in the right way. So it's very nice. It's very well. I loved it.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Jamila Missick.
Thank you for joining us for Our News tonight. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Marlena Leonard.